One email would eventually cost the world an estimated $10 billion. It doesn't come from a hacker breaking into anything. No exploit, no hidden flaw. It just arrives the way any email arrives, and sits there waiting to be opened. Subject line, 3 words, I love you. May 4th, 2000. Millions of inboxes, almost at once. No spam filter catches it, because it isn't hiding. It looks exactly like what it claims to be. A love letter from someone you already know. You'd open it too, be honest. People did. They clicked. And within hours, computers everywhere just stopped working right, in offices on opposite sides of the planet, at almost the exact same time, all from the same 3 words. By the end of the day, it had hit the Pentagon, the CIA, the British Parliament. All because someone, somewhere, wanted to know who loved them. Inside that email was the actual trick. Attached was a file with a name designed to look harmless. It looked like an ordinary text document, but hidden at the very end of the file name was something most people never noticed, a second extension, and that tiny detail changed everything. It told the computer to run a script, not open a document. Open it, and 2 things happen. It quietly overwrites files on your computer with copies of itself. Then, using your own email program, it sends that exact same message to everyone in your address book as you. It needed you to love someone and to trust the people who love you back. That's it. That's the whole attack. Veloix. Almost nobody brings up this next detail. Security researchers who cracked open the virus's code found something strange sitting right at the top. A comment the author never bothered to delete. It read, I hate go to school. Right below it, a signature, Spider, from a group calling itself Grammarsoft. Grammarsoft wasn't some elite hacking crew. It was a student club at a Manila computer college, one that mostly helped classmates cheat on homework. There's one more odd technical quirk buried in the code. The virus overwrote photos, documents, entire folders of work. But it didn't delete MP3 files, it hid them instead, moving them to a spot where the owner couldn't easily find them without destroying the data. Nobody's fully sure why the code was written that way. So somewhere in a piece of code that would go on to cost the world billions, there's a bored student complaining about school. That detail tells you more about how this whole thing started than any damage estimate does. Within 10 days, researchers estimate the virus had reached somewhere between 45 and 50 million computers. Ford Motor Company shut down its entire email network. So did AT&T and Microsoft. Denmark's parliament went dark too. For a few days, some of the most secure institutions on Earth were dealing with the exact same problem as somebody's grandmother. An email that said, I love you, and a computer that didn't work right afterward. Total damage, once you count the lost data, the lost work hours, the cleanup, somewhere around $10 billion. Decades later, it's still one of the most expensive pieces of malware ever released. And it came from one internet connection in one city. The trail led there fast. 2 names came up almost immediately, Rionel Ramones and a college student named Onel de Guzman. Police searched an apartment, found floppy disks, found code that looked like the virus. At the press conference, a reporter asked de Guzman directly if he was behind it. Through his lawyer, his answer was 2 words, it is possible. Asked about the damage he'd caused, he said even less, nothing, nothing. For a second, this looked like a clean ending. Suspect found, case closed. It wasn't. The Philippines, in 2000, had no law against writing or spreading malicious code. Prosecutors reached for anything that might stick: fraud charges, theft charges, and none of it actually fit what he'd done, because what he'd done didn't legally exist yet as a crime. The charges were dropped. There's one upside. The Philippines moved quickly to close the legal gap, passing new legislation that covered computer-related offenses later that year. But the man behind that much global damage never faced a single legal consequence for it. Something else changed here too. Before this, email felt like nothing to worry about. A memo, a message, nothing worth watching closely, not anymore. In the years that followed, scanning attachments before they reached an inbox became increasingly common. So did training people to be suspicious of unexpected links, something so normal today, it's practically a joke. And suddenly, digital trust had a price. One familiar name in an inbox could be enough to turn an ordinary message into a chain reaction. Nobody had built the defenses for that yet. This was the moment that showed they were needed. Then he disappeared from the story. Not physically, he stayed in Manila the whole time. No interviews, no book deal, no attempt to explain himself. Meanwhile, his virus kept showing up for 2 more decades, in cybersecurity textbooks, in worst malware of all time lists, in university lectures on exactly how social engineering works. And the person who wrote it said nothing. For 20 years. I find that harder to picture than the virus itself, honestly. Being the answer to one of the biggest tech mysteries on the planet, and just going quiet. In 2020, on the 20th anniversary, journalists finally found him. He wasn't hiding, and he wasn't living off whatever the chaos was supposedly worth. He was running a small phone repair stall in Manila, fixing cracked screens. Nobody walking past had any idea. When he finally talked, his explanation was almost anticlimactic. He said he never meant for it to leave the Philippines. Years earlier, he'd proposed something similar for his college thesis, a program to grab other people's login credentials, so people in the Philippines, where dial-up was billed by the minute, could get online for free. The school rejected it outright, called it unethical. He later turned that basic idea into something far more destructive, just smaller in his head than what it actually became. Somewhere between rejected thesis and $10 billion, there's a gap I don't think even he fully understands. It's tempting to picture a mastermind behind something this expensive. That's not what happened here. It was a badly thought-through idea, released into a world with no defenses built for it and no laws to hold anyone accountable once it got loose. The code didn't need to be sophisticated. It needed a trusted name in an inbox and a legal system that hadn't caught up yet. Both gaps closed, at least a little, because of one morning in May. The virus became a piece of history. The man who wrote it didn't. And somewhere, right now, someone is opening an email from someone they trust without a second thought. The technology changed. People didn't. Subscribe for a new mystery every week.